and welcome back to ETEnergyWorld. Today we are joined by Mr. Sunil Jain, CEO and ED of Hero Future Energies Private Limited. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So tell us more about the company and what the company did in 2016.
Well, I'll give you a small brief. We are a 4-year-old young company and we have achieved a lot in these 4 years, closer to 400 megawatt of operating assets. And 2016 has been a very eventful year. We're going to add almost an equal capacity in this year alone. That's around 400 megawatt. And we should be a gigawatt company by June of 2017. So effectively up to March, we should be closer to 600 megawatts. Another event what took place in this company during this year was that we raised the first green bond in the year 2016. The first certified green bond in the country, and having ambitious plans to move forward.
Okay. What part of your current capacity is wind and what part is solar?
So predominantly right now we are wind heavy. We are around 320 megawatt in wind and around 80 megawatt in solar. But as we move forward, probably it will be even Stevens. We would be equal in wind and solar in our gigawatt capacity.
You have just made a big announcement on the investment fund from IFC. Could you share more details about it?
So IFC is going to invest $125 million. This $125 million is being invested by IFC and their asset management company together. And this would give them a minority stake in the company. The company so far, has been entirely funded by the family capital. Probably the only company right now, barring the Tata Group, who have invested over $125 million of their own capital to set up such a large capacity. Going forward, because of our ambitious plans, we thought it is prudent to bring in marquee investors into the company who see value into the group as well as into the management.
How do you plan to utilize the investment going ahead?
So right now up to a gigawatt we are almost funded, but we have an ambitious plans of touching 2.5 gigawatts, or to be precise 2.7 gigawatts by 2020. Majority of this money will go into that expansion plan. Of course, this may not be sufficient, but then we will have a lot of internal accruals which will also fund this growth.
Okay. I think also policy-wise, solar is a bit easier these days?
Solar is definitely easy, which is more transparent. So bidding is there in solar, and if you win the bid, there are no ifs and buts. But in wind, because of the feed-in tariff regime, there's been reluctance on discoms to buy power, even though there is a policy in place. So that element of risk is always there. Having said that, the first wind bidding is going to come shortly in this month itself.
Yeah.
I hope that will change something for the better for the wind.
For solar, is it going to be mostly rooftop or you have other installations planned?
No. So primarily it is going to be grid connected.
Okay.
But we are probably going to be one of the largest players of rooftop. As we speak, we are doing 35 megawatts of rooftop this year. We have done some marquee deals like Kochi Metro, Jaipur Metro, Banaras Hindu University, and of course the Hero's own plant. And we have a target of almost 100 megawatts in next 18 months in rooftop solar. So rooftop is going to be a very, very important part of the company's future ambitious plan. And we believe that this rooftop business could be a value driver in its own standing.
You also have been talking a lot about solar wind hybrids.
Yes.
So any plans on that front?
Yes, we are going very ambitious on that. We believe it has got a lot of synergies. And our first solar wind hybrid could go under construction probably in next 3 to 4 months.
Okay, and how big would that plant be?
So we already have a 50 megawatt wind in place, and there itself we are adding around another 30-35 megawatt of solar.
What are your plans of capex, sir?
I would say on an average you take a 6 crore per megawatt as the cost for wind or solar projects. Solar is lower now to 5 crores and wind is at 7 crores. So average you can take 6 crore. With our plans of 2.5 gigawatt, I think so it's simple mathematics. We would be requiring around 15,000 crores totally, of which we would have invested 6,000 crores by June this year. So we would be looking at something around 9,000 crores over the next 4 years.
Okay, great. And most of that would be funded by the
So
IFC.
the projects are all funded by the equity and debt in a ratio of 75-25. 75 is debt. So all the equity will come from the IFC money and the family money. and the debt is, we are taking domestic debt. Part of it can come through bonds,
Okay.
which we definitely plan to raise more bonds.
Mm-hmm.
Bonds is the new means of financing the projects as we move forward.
Is there any timeline to your plans of raising bonds?
No, there is no timeline because it will be all need based.
Okay.
And of course, you need to time as to what is the pricing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Bonds are definitely a cheaper form of financing than the long-term debt.
And those would be domestic bonds or?
So far, we have
Dollar
done
bonds.
domestic bonds, but
Okay.
we are open to raising international bonds also.
If you have to talk about the biggest concerns in the renewable industry right now, say about transmission issues and demand, if you could list some of those for us.
So let me tell you this, that not from renewable energy perspective only, but from a power sector as a whole, I think so demand is an issue. But this is, I believe, a temporary issue. I see the demand going up in the next financial year, and that should resolve part of the issues which the sector is facing. Coming back to the renewable sector, what we need is a long-term policy across states. In India, the power is a concurrent subject. So not necessarily all the center policies are implemented by states, and states have got their own policies. But unfortunately, states tend to deviate or change or put non-tariff barriers to circumvent those policies, and that is a very big hindrance to investment. So my biggest concern today is a long-term horizon, and when I say long-term, I need a 5-year horizon, so that my investments know that where they are investing and what returns I will get.
So for today, the per capita consumption is close to 1,000 units.
A little less than 1,000.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
where do you see it going in the next 5 years?
I think so next 5 years we should double it. We definitely should double it. We are actually on the lower curve of the consumption across compared to the similar economies in the world. And with the Prime Minister's vision of 24/7 power for all, I think so that's very easy to achieve. And the aspirations of the Indians are rising, so the gadgets and the other things are going to add to the consumptions. So definitely I see that it will not be a difficult part to double the consumption.
But do you think the issue regarding grid stability has eased over time?
I don't know if you read a recent CA survey and CA comments, they are of the view that by 2020 there's enough transmission capacity available in the country, you don't need to augment it. But having said that, they may be talking on an overall perspective, but then you would need a pockets where, west-north corridor is a constraint or north-east corridor may be a constraint. So those constraints have to be looked into. South-west corridor also has got some constraints, and what is happening is for renewables in particular, it is primarily concentrated into the southern part of the world, country, and part of it in the western part. So you have to bring in the power entirely to the north and to the eastern part of the country. Now those constraints must be removed. And the green corridor which is being under construction should ease that problem to a large extent.
The government is also talking about solar parks.
Well, that's definitely a good phenomena because what it does is takes away the burden of the evacuation and the land from the developer. It may not be so much good for me because as a Indian company, I have the capabilities to develop and acquire my own land, develop my own evacuation, which we have been doing for so far, which actually is a differentiator between Hero and the other companies. We do a lot of our own developments. But for MNCs coming in, with the investment coming from overseas, people want things to be on a platter. And that's what government is doing, giving them on a platter. But that's a good way of doing it. It eases the burden of acquiring land. That's definitely easier part.
Any other way your business was impacted due to demonetization?
Well, definitely yes. The 50 days have been tough on us. But I think so there are always some pains for long-term gains. We should all abide by the Prime Minister's decision to do this. I think so it is for the good. The only thing what we see is that, and what we say as an industry is that we have borne the brunt for the 50 days, give us some relief in terms of timelines for the projects or timelines for the incentives what you have announced, some of which lapse in March.
The GBI.
Like GBI. Yes. So if they can be extended for 50 days, that would be very helpful.
Finally, the budget is coming up, and what are your expectations from the government?
Renewable sector has been always exempted from taxes and duties. But GST has changed all that. So a lot of powers which were there in the budget for taxes and duties has now been shifted to GST Council. So I don't know the finance minister how much he has in his hand in terms of tax and duties. But one request definitely we have, which probably budget can provide, because at the end of the day, the center has to compensate the states for the shortfall in taxes, is that we should be continued to be brought under zero taxation. We are right now in zero taxation. So in the GST, we should be under zero taxation. Otherwise, I don't see budget offering much except that rationalization of the taxes. If finance minister has said that he will be rationalizing the taxes, so we hope so. One big thing which we are all concerned is that there's an ATIA benefit for the power sector, which is lapsing on March 17. And that is one thing we would definitely look from the finance minister to extend it, at least from 1 year, so that the impact of GST and whatever the problems are in the GST are known to the people and they are able to overcome them in next 1 year. And so that we will have that benefit of that ATIA. So that is one thing what we would be looking from the government.
Any kind of subsidies that you would be looking forward to?
I don't think so. We don't want to look at subsidies. The sector would be better off standing on its own legs. And I am a strong believer. In fact, I represent Wind in IPP Association. I am the president of that association. And we are firm believer that if we stand on our legs without subsidy, the sector would be better off.
Thank you so much for talking to us.